A 13-year Expedia veteran, our next speaker oversees lodging supply and relationships for operations globally. He's also responsible for sourcing lodging supply in more than 70 countries across the Expedia Group brands. His focus now is on strengthening the company's partnership role with hotels, but has notably said, I quote, "You can never say never about the prospect of Expedia launching its own hotel brands." Please welcome Expedia Group Lodging Partner Services President Cyril Ranque.
Where do you want me to sit?
I'd like you to sit right there.
Right there?
Thank you very much, Cyril. Right, so
I didn't know you were going to pick a quote to start. Okay.
I don't write these things anyway. So, Cyril's literally just got off a plane. So thank you very much for dashing.
From Vegas, which is why I have a glitzy t-shirt, because this is what you wear in Vegas.
So my first fairly flippant question is, were you loyal to one of your group brands, Silver Rail, and catch the train? Were you loyal to your former boss and catch an Uber? Or did you get a taxi?
I was loyal to my former boss, yes.
Right.
Trying to get the IPO price up a little bit.
I hope you did your job very well. Right, so the theme of the conference, as I mentioned when we were interviewing Airbnb yesterday, is Empires on the Edge. It's our kind of theme. We've been talking about large brands and whether they feel vulnerable. What would you say, Cyril, what edge are you on at Expedia Group? Are you on the edge of greatness, or are you on the edge of being challenged, do you think?
Well, I think you're always on the edge of being challenged. That's the good state to be if you want to get to greatness. I think we're focusing on our strategy of harnessing the power of our platform, and we'll probably talk about that, being customer-centric so that our brands continue to differentiate the products and services they offer to customers. And the good thing is we have brands that address different market segments, so we need to be laser-focused on this. And just adding lodging supply everywhere in the world so that we are relevant to consumers for whatever need they have. So it's a path to greatness, but hopefully we'll be one of them getting there.
Is it easy adding all that supply, given that there are other people trying to do exactly the same?
It's all about the value you deliver. So if you can guarantee these lodging partners that you'll get them incremental customers, which we believe we do, it's a fairly easy sell, yeah. It just takes a lot of people. It takes 6,000 people around the world, which is kind of what differentiates us from the pure technology platform. We actually have people working with hotels and we have people working with customers. We're not only processing data. Okay, so you're not just doing it on your own. I was going to say that would be fairly impressive. So, I mean, back to the Empires question. We're going to go through some kind of big picture stuff. The reason why there are two other chairs is that we've got some other people to join us in about 10 minutes or so. So, just the size of a group like Expedia, make it inherently slower to evolve if it needs to in reaction to the changes in market, changes in consumer behavior, those types of things? Probably. I think probably it makes us slower. My view is that this is not a problem, actually. The problem in travel is reaching global scale, because that's where you get real efficiencies, and will always be slower than the local players or the niche players that are laser focused on one capability for one market, because we build stuff for the world. And so it's okay, because at the time when you actually get to global capabilities, then you get efficiencies that make you more profitable, more effective than the local players or the incumbents. Okay. Sorry, not the small players. Of course, but is there a certain amount of jealousy then that you see others innovating and doing things quicker than you're able to? You kidding? I mean, it drives me nuts. Okay. Nuts every night. You see all these startups, and I'm sure there were a lot of great presentations from new companies here. It's fascinating, the innovation that is happening in the industry. But we have to be disciplined. We just have to follow our course and focus on what's going to get us to scale. So which one of those that you say, oh, they're going really fast, which one has perhaps been the fastest that's made you kind of go, oh, I'm not so sure about this? It's not one in particular. It's more when you look at the travel is about basically helping customers finding the right trip, then making sure that they get the best price, and then making sure that they have a seamless experience from pre-booking to post-booking. And there's innovation across the journey. There's nothing in particular that strikes me as being the next big thing.
If only you would say it would be great. Okay, it's a shame. So let's just talk specifically for a moment about your particular role. I mean, how do large brands like Expedia Group handle, I guess it can be often seen as a sensitive relationship that they have with their suppliers. And I'm talking specifically about commission levels and rates and things like that. I mean,
I've never been asked a question on commissions.
Have you not?
No, never.
Okay.
Never.
Let's talk about commissions.
Everybody thinks it's fair and it's a great rate for the service we provide, so it's always smooth.
Really? Mm-hmm. Okay, now tell us the other side of the story.
Well, listen, this year we've renewed a bunch of big partnerships with Hyatt, with IHG, with Marriott, without drama. And I'm sorry, Kevin, without drama. So there was no big press, burst about hate, etc. So I know it's kind of boring, but it tells a story that I think we're moving from that contentious relationship to something more constructive, where we can focus on the value that we provide to these players, and I think they understand it better, and that there's a price for that. But we're more actually at a stage where we're expanding the scope of our partnership with our lodging partners than reducing them.
Okay.
And you'd probably see us come up with packages of offerings for the big chains, for the smaller ones, for the independents, for the tail. It's more really tailored to the needs of the segments. And as long as we provide value,
okay,
we manage the contention.
The tail wags the dog wags the tail. Who's the head of the dog? Is it you or is it the chains?
I think we have an advantage because we have a lot of investments in technology, in data, in technology, and this is where the industry is going. The need for more technology, more data, more insights on customer trends, et cetera. And I think we have a structural advantage versus the chains in providing this to owners. So
you're controlling, you think, that conversation is what you're saying?
I think we can prove that we're adding value.
Okay.
But nice try. That's good.
We try, that's good.
Yeah.
Right, so direct distribution versus OTA distribution, suppliers are, in some markets, certainly gaining market share. I mean, how are you kind of fighting back against that if you do need to fight back against it?
I think there's a space for direct bookings and there's a space for OTA bookings. And actually, if you think about where customers shop, it's really going to be aligned with what they're looking for. And if they're looking for inspiration, they'll look at content sites and review sites, et cetera. If they're looking for a fast transaction at a specific hotel, they'll probably go direct anyway. And if they're looking for a little bit of features to narrow their search, they'll probably come to an OTA because that's where the service is happening. So I think we provide a very efficient channel for new customer acquisition. And then brand.com is a really effective channel for repeat loyal customers. So it's just part of the ecosystem. And I don't think it's one is going to take over the other.
Okay, before we bring up our two comrades here, I mean, do you think that there is going to be some kind of consolidation amongst OTAs generally on a global basis or a regional basis here in Europe?
I think we've done pretty well already,
Mm-hmm.
I think that what's interesting now is you have the emergence of multiple platforms in the lodging industry, and everybody wants to be a platform. Expedia ambitions to be the world's travel platform, so we're one of them. With different angles, some have, again, they talk to customers, they talk to partners, and then they have a platform service in the middle. Some are only focused on the tech in the middle. Some are global, some are more regional, in China, for instance. The only question for me is whether the travel industry is a winner-take-all game or whether there is space for multiple platforms offering different services. And customers can shop on multiple platforms and partners can also distribute on multiple platforms.
Well, can you answer your own question there?
Yeah,
is it a winner-take-all?
I tend to think that in a $1.8 trillion industry, there's space for more than one player. But if you look at the world of information or the world of social media or the world of e-commerce, it kind of landed towards a single player or a couple of players. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in travel.
Right, okay, so right on cue. Unfortunately, they don't have as sparklier T-shirts as you, Cyril, but can we welcome Jan Valentin, the CEO and founder of Ennea, and also Terry von Bibra, who's the General Manager for Europe at the Alibaba Group. Let's have a round of applause for our other team.
You had your T-shirt, yeah.
Gents, you've heard a lot from me. Come on, let's give Cyril a tough question as well, and then we'll start a discussion.
Yeah. So, I haven't heard a lot about flights business, and you're the biggest flights OTA out there. So, why don't you manage to have as good of an experience for flights as for hotels, just like anyone else?
I can answer freely because I run hotels, but listen, I think it's just a question of priority. It's just as you know quite well, because you were with CAG before. So, hotel is where most of the revenue is and most of the growth is. It's a fragmented business where the OTA value proposition for customers and partners is extremely relevant. Flights is a much more concentrated business. You know, the airlines are kind of owning their point of origin. They have more direct relationships. So it's just and there's less margins. So it's just a question of order of priority. Now, we do look at flights as a fantastic customer acquisition channel that allows us to upsell hotels, either right after the transaction or through packages. So in the future, we will continue to invest in our flights platform. Just seeing that Google is also investing nicely in there. So it's definitely not an afterthought. It's just a question of priority.
Just on that, I mean, we joked in the green room there about that, but you said Google is investing in its flight platform. This is with money that arguably you've given them through the digital.
Potentially.
Most people know you and Booking Holdings spent $10.4 billion on digital marketing, a lot of that to Google this year. I mean, how do you square that as a group when you see what Tivanas was just saying?
With a lot of attention, let's put it this way. I think we've been pretty public about the fact that some of the developments were potentially looking like direct competition to us. To the OTA, especially the multi-item OTA profile like brand Expedia. The question is also, if Google is an efficient customer acquisition channel, and within their products there is a space for us to attract new customers efficiently, then it's fair game. So my understanding is that they like the revenue they get from us. So I'm hopeful that the products will give us a good chance at getting customers efficiently.
Okay, Terry, I didn't mean to jump in front of you. I just wanted to get his go for it.
That was very good question. Cyril, so I see what you're doing as being a very effective search engine, really, which is we all have grown up learning as that being a very effective way to interact, whether it's travel or other areas. When are you going to go beyond the search engine? Are you going to go beyond being that search engine? You
mean become more of a complete hospitality tech platform?
Yeah. Yes.
No, I think that's a great question. Shiji has done a lot of that. Alibaba is a specialist of doing this. Others have gone into that path too. For us, we're taking it perhaps a little differently than others, as because we have a core business, which is the OTA business. We're thinking about it more as what are the products that we're building for ourselves that we can port to the industry to solve partner problems or customer problems, but as a marginal investment. Like, we're not necessarily thinking we've got to cover the whole map of hospitality tech with our own products, which means we're not acquiring companies left and right to fill all the gaps of the industry. We may, organically build some. We may partner with some. We may buy some that complement our core business.
So you're gonna introduce something like Booking Basic as well?
Well, I mean, Booking has chosen a path. Seems like it's moved around a little bit over the last few years. Again, we've focused more on scaling like our package white label technology, making our revenue management system Rev Plus available to 40,000 partners around the world. We built Alice because we think in Alice that it solves we bought it because it solves an operational problem for partners, but also because in the end we will connect Alice to our customer app, and it will allow us to have a seamless customer experience from booking to in-stay experience, etc. But I don't think we will, try to be everywhere in the short term. Okay. It's really focusing on solving the partner problem, so as I said before.
Jan, I mean, not specifically about Expedia unless you want to, but generally about giant OTAs and the power that they hold. I mean, what do you think their strengths and their weaknesses? Now let's forget about strengths. What do you think their weaknesses are that allow somebody to kind of challenge
Well,
them?
I think one weakness you just actually pointed out, because you said you're not focusing on flights because it doesn't monetize as much, right? And so you're looking at the next quarter, and you're looking at the next quarter and the next quarter. And I think Google in particular is tapping into different, for example, technology. In my opinion, Expedia should be at the forefront of integrating NDC, for example, on a grand level, and just have a new experience. We just heard that nobody books travel like he books on Amazon, I believe, for business class flights in particular, for business flights in particular. That doesn't apply. You just want to shop, and we don't have that experience yet. So I think there's a lack of innovation in fields that don't scale as much in the short term, right? And maybe even in terms of investment, there's a lack that might be harmful in the long term.
Okay, Terry, let's just change tack slightly. I mean, intermediaries, OTAs in particular, kind of held a pivotal role since the very beginning of kind of online travel. The ecosystem is built around the way they act. Can that model evolve, do you think, over time? Or are we stuck with it?
I think it has to evolve because I think that's actually also one of the biggest challenges for any of these players. We have players, as you mentioned, in this industry and others that have become very, very large, very successful by doing a very good job. You become a large company, you become a large organization, and you become very immobile to adapting. So, for me, it's been fascinating in my work to see the differences, in our case, with Chinese travelers, between the travel preferences, the booking preferences of a millennial in China and someone older are just two completely different species of travelers. For a big company to adapt to that is very difficult. So I think they're going to have to. We're all going to have to. Where that direction is going to go, that's the big question. But there's no way the key players today are going to be operating and serving this industry in the same way 5 years from now. It is moving way too fast for that.
I agree with that.
Is there a point in time where you see supply growth essentially limited, and then your growth overall is going to suffer?
And supply growth is, fortunately for us, there's quite a long way to go, especially outside the US. So it is a fuel in our growth engine that we will continue to invest in. At some point, when you have all the supply on your platform, it's about matching it better with demand, and then that's where we think we have another vein of growth through data and AI, because we've operated our brands in a very independent way since we bought them, all of them, or built them. And now we're really trying to harness the power of that platform by integrating data and building AI capabilities that will significantly improve the relevancy of what we can offer consumers and what we can offer lodging partners. So I think it's a stage of development for a business like ours is first you aggregate, you build as much supply as you can so that your product is relevant, and then not then, of course it's not sequential, but you try to optimize through data and AI the matching of supply and demand, and we think there's huge potential there, and that is an advantage that only the big platforms have. The small players, unfortunately for them, they don't have access to data.
But the platform model, sorry, just to interrupt, the platform model is a great foundation for adapting, right? So taking a platform model, certainly our approach, we see ourselves as a platform of platforms. So that does give you the advantage to say, this change is happening, here's players who are going to be more active in that space, all we need to do is to enable them to enter the platform to access the large consumer base, to access the supply. So a platform open model is definitely, I think, the best chance of adapting, but you will still have the issue that platform has been built to scale for huge numbers, and that makes you less flexible.
It is a challenge, I agree.
We've talked about very technical-led ways it's going to evolve, and I'm just going to reference back to the quote that we used in your intro, which is that you can never say never about the prospect of Expedia launching its own hotel brands. I mean, we've seen what's happening with Oyo. So talk to us about never saying never, and what's realistically that about could happen?
What's realistic, I think, Thierry said it well. Things change quite rapidly, and so you should never say never. I look at it more, again, coming back to what I said, which is we are very close to our lodging partners, and we try to understand what the problems they're trying to solve, whether they are small or medium-sized or big or chain or non-chain, et cetera. And we're trying to come up with offerings that solve their problems. And so you can think of a segment where we put together a series of offerings, marketing, data, technology, service, that could look like what a brand is offering. Now, would it be branded Expedia? Probably not, because we already have our consumer brand, but it's a pack of service. So that's why I just want to clarify that it's a pack of service may actually look like what another company provides, but it's all partner-driven. It's not to add a brand to the game.
Okay. So what other, if you're on the edge of being challenged and the model is going to evolve, which we discussed, what other branded platforms do we think might emerge? Without naming any names at this stage. We'll start with you, Jan.
Well, I think there is going to be a huge disruption is imminent in the flights distribution business per se. It might very well be that some of the people that are just carriers today may evolve as platforms. That's what they're trying to do. So I could see the big airlines actually becoming competitors of yours as they're scaling up their direct business and also integrating other services in a holistic fashion. If you don't, if you're saying you're a platform and you're the platform actually in some interviews, but then you have to go, and actually work on the other products than hotels. Others
that might emerge. Okay.
Can I ask a question just so, for me, the business model of a platform is to integrate all the supply and connect with all the demand. How can a brand, like an airline or a hotel chain, be a platform when structurally they have a subset of the supply or the demand? Because
they start to integrate other supply as well. They start to integrate accommodation supply, experience supply, et cetera, et cetera. If you look at all, you mentioned in one interview, all of them, a lot of people are saying, I want to be the platform, right? And in a way, if you go with a meta model, you don't have to do all the hard groundwork
Correct.
that you're doing. So that's the difference.
But just for an airline and a hotel chain, it seems counterintuitive to try to be everything to everybody when they have owners that want their product to be sold, not the competitor product.
Okay. Challenging. I don't know, maybe it might be a branded product that isn't a travel-associated brand that could come into that space, something that is more associated with something that people are looking for in general, and then they find a way to apply that to travel. So think about, for me, it still amazes me how people use Instagram today. It's not at all how Instagram was designed to be used, right? So designed to use to share individual pictures. Now people use it to share press releases, right? Press release is the opposite of a good image. People use it to connect to each other. It wasn't built for that at all, but it's been taken over by users to use it for what they want. You could do the same thing in this space. It'd be very hard to see where it's coming from ahead of time, but it could be a brand that is not associated with travel, that users say, I want to use this brand to discover content in my travel preferences in a way that no one else is giving me.
Which leads me wonderfully into the next question. It's going to be the final question, unfortunately. Travel conferences, the elephant in the room was always Google, and now the elephant in the room is perhaps even bigger in the shape with its big trunk called Amazon. Analysts are starting to say that it has the potential to really do something here. What do you think about that?
Listen, we think about it a lot, of course. I think the interesting, and kind of bridging to what Thierry said, the interesting challenge is what do you do when you're, like, let's take an OTA, when you're an OTA and you have contracted a lot of supply, which is what we've done, about more than 2 million properties in the world. What do you do with that supply? Do you keep it as a competitive advantage for your own brands, or do you extend it to everybody who wants to sell it, because that actually maximizes the value that you bring to your lodging partners? And the question for me is, if you do it in the travel space, then it's fair game. You give your supply to another OTA or another distributor, and everybody competes on the same level. If you give it to players that don't do only travel, they can actually use it as a subsidy. And Amazon has a lot of other products that they want to sell. They want to maximize the value of Prime. You have cashback platforms in Asia also that want travel as a sub-product. You have banks that want travel as a sub-product to sell cards and get fees. And then it becomes really tricky because these players have access to basically what you have as a travel brand, plus their own other
But that
value
that
proposition.
could be seen as an advantage. Who wants to jump in on Amazon before we wrap up?
Yeah.
Having worked for Amazon, I would say I would not discount anything. What I can say, whether it's Amazon or my company or another company, or these kind of companies, there's no interest in doing anything simply to get a piece of the pie. No interest whatsoever. My company, but I would be free enough to say that, in my opinion, also for Amazon. The only interest would be to say, if you can go in and use innovation to do something differently in a way that will make it better, then that's interesting. If not, no thank you.
Jan, can they do something interesting, yes or no?
Well, I think, for example, they could be, function as a virtual airline. So essentially, they buy off the seats of an airline. The airline just becomes the operator, and Amazon is on top of that. That would be disruptive, e.g. And I agree with you from the conversations that we're having. I don't think they'll just do it to be the next Expedia, but to fundamentally disrupt.
What do you think, Kevin?
I'm not allowed to have an opinion on the journalist, so sorry about that. We're out of time, unfortunately. Cyril, Ranque, Jan Valentin and Terry von Bibra. Give them a round of applause, please. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thanks.